Welcome to Ancient World Studies. My name is Dr. Raoul McLaughlin. The question is, did ancient Massalian trade include Celtic cats? The link between cats and ancient Egypt is well known, but early Irish texts confirm that domestic cats were also important in Celtic society. But how did the Celts of Northern Europe acquire these animals? One of the most popular and widely repeated theories about the origins of Celtic cats concerns the Greeks of Massalia in southern Gaul. Massalia was a commercial city established in Celtic territory by Greek colonists in around 600 BC. The Greeks acquired cats from trading centres in the eastern Mediterranean, and these animals would have been trafficked to their colonies. Ship cats were a common addition on board a vessel, helping the crew to control the mice and rats that contaminated grain cargoes and food rations. The first European domestic cats would have reached Sicily and southern Italy in this way. The Massalia theory for cat expansion into Europe was popularized by a 1977 article in a journal called Scientific American. The article was written by Todd, entitled Cats and Commerce. This was before the modern revolution in DNA analysis, so the work could not include testing of ancient bone remains from burials or settlements. There was therefore limited opportunity to make confident comparisons with modern cat populations to determine any ancestral groups. Todd collected and considered modern data about current cat populations. He outlined the principles of genetic inheritance in cats and constructed a model for how modern domestic feline populations might have reached their types and proportions. Todd's model relied on several important principles. He argued that, unlike other domesticated animals held in enclosures or kept confined in households, until modern times, humans had comparatively little influence on cat breeding. He noted that cats are subject to easily identifiable genetic mutations that affect the colour and texture of their fur. Todd was able to identify clear mutant types in the species. For example, cats that are dominant white, all black, or variegated ginger. Todd noted the frequency of these phenotypes varies in different regions, and deduced that this could be the result of distant historical connections. Todd further acknowledged that the various cat types had dissimilar general behaviours, including their aggression and fear responses. This affected their adaptability to the presence of humans and other species. Diverse cat types also had varying intolerance to climate, resistance to disease, differing nutritional requirements, and dietary preferences. In the past, this would have made them better suited for various tasks in human society, and better able to tolerate a range of specific environments. Todd therefore suggested that current population frequencies of cat types would also reflect historical events. This included the spread of urban dwellings in pre-modern societies. Another important feature of Todd's model for cat colonization was the idea that the cat types which developed and spread in later periods would be less frequent in modern populations. He reasoned that any new breeds would have less opportunity to become dominant in places that already had significant cat populations. Todd separated domestic cats into categories based on phenotypes, including the Agouti type. Particular genes determine the distribution of melanin pigment in animals and give a cat its distinctive colour of fur. Agouti cats have the tabby appearance of indigenous wild cats, in part due to the individual hairs of their fur having white, black and grey pigments along the length. By contrast, non-Agouti cats have a uniform pigmentation in their fur. They are a later type with individual hairs that are all white all ginger, or more commonly, all black. Using sample data, Todd created a Klein map to show the frequency of the Anon Agouti gene in modern cat populations. This shows the distribution of cats with a uniform pigmentation in their fur. The darker the red on the map, the heavier the concentration of Anon Agouti cats in the feline population. Note that this map includes female cats who are part ginger and therefore carriers of the Anon Agouti gene for ginger. It also includes the blotched tabby. Note that the map shows that Anon Agouti single-coloured cats are most common in Greece, coastal North Africa, the Rhone Seine river systems in France, the British Isles, Iceland, Jutland, and Scandinavia. Todd thought that this pattern represented the effects of ancient trade, dating back to the Greek and Phoenician era. This suggests that around 2,500 years ago, seafaring Phoenicians introduced cats to their colonies in North Africa and Iberia, Spain and Portugal. The Greeks would have brought their cats to Massalia, and from there the animals would have spread inland through the Gallic tribes to eventually reach the British Celts. Cats would have been taken on board cargo vessels and other transport ships. This theory is supported by a so-called corridor of contact leading through the Rhone Seine river systems. The Viking Cats. Todd also noted the frequency of ginger and dominantly white cats in regions associated with the Vikings. This included the islands of western Scotland and the Isle of Man, which had been entirely Celtic before Norse expansion in the medieval era. This wide distribution pattern was unusual because cats that are dominantly white have comparatively poor eyesight and fewer of their kittens survive into adulthood. The conclusion has to be that some form of human preference had selected and promoted white cats to breed in areas subject to Norse settlement. Based on the distributions, Todd theorized that the Vikings had acquired white cats in Anatolia through their Black Sea and Caspian trade contacts along the Volga River. Ancient Celtic and northern Germanic peoples venerated white animals as sacred, so perhaps the Vikings had similar practices. A white cat was probably favoured aboard ships, perhaps for superstitious reasons, and therefore thrived in the trading settlements that the Vikings established across northern Europe. This is a form of selective migration based on what is called novelty selection. The Vikings colonized new territories in the far north that did not have large-scale domestic cat populations. In these areas, their favoured white cats acquired dominance. This includes regions such as the Faroe Islands and Iceland. Todd's 1977 article was highly influential at the time, and suggested another way to trace the patterns of trade and settlement across the European landmass. But due to recent scientific developments in DNA analysis, his research could be considered out of date. Todd's theories involve untested models and very general impressions of human history. However, modern archaeologists are now working with large-scale genetic data that will confirm, refute, or modify Todd's established model for cats and commerce. The full story of Celtic and Viking cats, and how they relate to trade ventures, is only beginning to be properly understood. As Todd himself said, the cats, of course, are only a transient packaging of genetic information. Perhaps, in the near future, we all might be able to discover the ancient origins and distant ancestry of our own house cat. Thank you.